Earthquake playeth nothing but chance, chance, and more chance. This are not thine elder matriarch station.
Hello everyone. Welcome back on this wonderful Friday night. I hope you're having a fantastic one. Hope you had a good week. I do apologize for not streaming on Tuesday. I was just didn't have the spoons. Just wasn't feeling up to it. So I spent some time just relaxing, finding some solitude, and watching anime and reading a couple books. So spent a lot of time in solitude, which is what I needed. I am an introvert at heart, so being around people all the time, interacting with people all the time is enjoyable, is fun, but it is draining. It is not something that I receive a lot of excitement or emotional energy with. Being alone with a good book or a new anime series or something like that is highly restorative for me. So it is something that I had neglected and I needed it. Welcome on in, everybody. Hey, Pikmin Horror, how are you doing? Sintal and Torn, how are you doing? Feeling Objective, Cookrafter, hello everyone. For those of you who are here for the intro music, that is from Hot and Freddy. Hot as in Hot Couture, H-A-U-T-E, Hot. Hot and Freddy, and the song is called Scantily Clad Woman. They have some really fun kind of pop, Devo-esque type of music, and it's really enjoyable. All right, so we're going to keep working on our Emperor's Spear here. I do want to spend some time working on the leather pouches and other things like that, just so that we get more visual context in here. So we're going to work on that, and then of course we're going to continue to fiddle with the armor, trying to make it look shiny but not too shiny. Right now the specular highlights, I think the specular highlights are out of balance. They're reading as really shiny when I didn't really want them to be really shiny. I want them to be there to show some kind of material gleam, but I think they're out of balance. I don't have enough. I don't know. They feel out of balance to me. And you guys can let me know if you agree or not. If maybe they're too bright or their mid-tone needs to come up. Stuff like that. Hey, Romans. Oh, thank you. Why didn't I hear the alert? I'm supporting you. Apologize for not letting today. Today is internment. Tomorrow. No worries. No worries. Love Hot and Freddy. I thought I recognized the sound. Yeah, that's the first song I had ever heard from them back on TikTok and Reels when they were just, that's like the song they were playing because it was coming out really soon. Oh, they've had a bunch of other ones that are pretty darn good since then, but Scantily Clad Woman was the one that introduced me to them. So Romans, we'll get your library card here in just a second. Thank you once again for the support, and no worries. I know doing funerals and things like that, the grieving process, all of that is taking the majority of your attention, and believe it or not, that's totally okay. Believe it or not, that's totally okay. So today we're going to be working on our Emperor's Spear. Obviously, so then after the first hour, we'll go into our community spotlight again. And there have been some really cool stuff people have been putting down in the works in progress and the completed progress, the completed project section. So I'm looking forward to seeing more of those. Looking forward to seeing what y'all are working on. If you have anything you want to share, please do feel free to hop in the Discord and post it in the works in progress. You don't have to stay in the Discord. You can leave immediately if you want to. It's just the easiest way for people on multiple different platforms to share what they've been working on, so everybody, the whole community across all the different platforms can see. Again, you do not have to stay by any means. But love it if you did. Certainly not required. Here we've got base coat down on some of the leather pouches. I'm going to make the decision to paint the backside of the belt as part of leather as well. There's not a whole lot of this that is visible on this model, so I don't have to worry about it too much. How's everybody's week been going? Everything going okay for the most part? Anybody been taking on any new projects or anything like that? Oh, let's see. Am I missing any comments in TikTok? Why are the TikTok chats not showing up in my multi-stream? What's going on there? I'm missing people. Relic Bear, a week ago you gave me advice on starting a page. I listened to start a page. That's fantastic, Relic Bear. That's awesome. I know 80ish followers. I now have 80ish followers and people around the world messaging me with support. That's fantastic. No, that's awesome. I'm so happy to hear that. That's really, really cool. Painted my first Space Marine yesterday. I posted in the Discord. I only have one more to paint. Yeah, I did see that, and I'm sorry I have not taken the time. I have not been able to take the time and sit down and give any feedback. But excellent work, very nicely done. I did see that. And on the works in progress, on the community spotlight, since you asked for advice, we'll give a little bit of constructive feedback there, and then maybe some more detailed stuff in like a text message in the channel or something like that. So we still have the back of the shoulder pads, the back of the arms on both sides, and the entire backpack to really kind of narrow down all of the reflective areas on the model. And then obviously we have to do the soft armor in between the joints, make sure that gets addressed. The leather, got to finish those. Then of course the face. So we still have a ways to go, purity seals, things like that. We still have a way to go, but I'm liking this armor color a lot more than the original we were going through. The original was kind of like a classic sky blue, baby blue as the mid-tone, and it just wasn't looking right. It wasn't really matching the Emperor's Spear art, so we backed off and did a slightly more saturated gray blue, which I think this fits in. Nines, no, this is an Emperor's Spears. This is there are They are an official chapter. And they have a whole black library book called The Spears of the Emperor. That happens just, if I'm remembering, it happens just after the fall of Cadia. And so, they are an official chapter. Looks so fucking awesome, man. The color is so well. Hey, thank you so much. I really appreciate that. Okay, so let's go in here. Let's start working a little bit more on the leather, and we're gonna work that up just a little bit. We got multiple things we're doing today. Like I said, we're going to be working on this a little bit more, and then we've got our community spotlight for people to show off like the works in progress and things like that in after the first hour of the stream. So we've got another 45 minutes before that, and then we'll get back to working on this. Sometimes the community spotlight takes an hour because so many people have been doing so many cool things. So we want to give time to all of them, and some of them ask for feedback. And then sometimes it doesn't take anywhere close to an hour. So we just say after the first hour we go do that, and then that takes as long as it does, and then we come back in and we continue painting. And once again, if anybody wants to show any of the stuff off that they've been working on to the community, go ahead and hop into the Discord, even temporarily. You can hop in, post your stuff, and then leave immediately if you want to. But feel free to share your stuff here. Now, I am using some neutral browns for this leather. It's a dark umber, which is slightly reddish brown, but not very. But it is a little bit. It is a little more neutral, but it is slightly warm, so it still has some of that leather warmthness to it, but it's a dark leather. And then I'm using light umber here to start the initial kind of wear and weathering on the leather, especially around the edges, areas that are going to get lots of impact. We'll do a couple scratches here and there. And the thing with building up leather that looks like it's been used and worn is doing successive layers. You can't just do it and make it look convincing in just one layer of scratches and stuff like that. You do need to build it up, because leather is complex when it wears. It wears down unevenly because of the way it's been used. So you want multiple layers of wear and tear and the results of scratches and being banged against walls and fortifications and things like that. Whether it is a holster or a scabbard or a piece of armor or just a belt, leather is very interesting, the way that it wears down, and it's worth spending a little extra time to give it some of that uniqueness and that creativity. Oh, I saw somebody gave a gift. Thank you so much. I really appreciate that. Let's see. Got my first miniatures. Tried making salamanders with WA green, but it's a bit too dark, even with white primer and a lot of thinning. WA green. Yes, so you could use a lighter green to go over the WA green and work it up, and then the WA green just becomes kind of like that slightly darker green in the shadows, and you can bring you can paint over it with the other greens. Now, let me think. WA green, is that a contrast paint, or is that like a layer base paint from Games Workshop? If it's a contrast paint, you can't really go over contrast paints with other contrast paints because they don't have any opacity. But if it's a regular paint, then you can paint over it. Let's see. Minis are so much smaller than I was expecting. I was expecting maybe palm size, not pinky. Oh, I gotcha. I've gotcha. If you want bigger Space Marines, go look up on Amazon. Go look up a Joy Toy. They make Marines that are posable action figures, and they're like this tall. And they've got salamanders, and they're all pre-painted. So if you don't want to do any painting, they're all pre-painted, they're all pre-colored, but you can also paint over them. But Joy Toy, their minis, their Space Marines are like 6 inches tall, 4 to 6 inches tall. And then if you want even bigger, you can look at McFarlane Space Marines. Those are also posable action figures, but they're about 12 inches tall. But those come pre-painted as well. You can also get unpainted ones. So if you're looking at just having some cool Space Marines, but not having to, having them bigger and maybe not having to paint them, Joy Toy and McFarlane are the two places you want to look for those. I think it's a layer. Okay. I also painted another one while I was at it. I would also like some feedback on that one as well, Quentin Apple. Okay, yeah, just post it up in the Discord if you can. That way we can see it. Let's see. Romans, we need to get your library card before I forget. So, for those of you who may be new here, my name is Ryan. I'm the Useless Wizard, and we are currently sitting in my study in the Great Library of Magic. The reason I am down here in the Great Library of Magic is because I am a useless wizard who was kicked out of the Wizard School of Magic for being useless. Like, they didn't want me teaching classes anymore. Go figure. So they sent me down here. Banished me, for lack of a better term, down here to the Great Library, where I watch over it and I keep visitors and students, such as yourselves, entertained and safe here in the Great Library. And you can get a library card as part of the Great Library. And Romans has been one of our long-time members, over 70 months at this point. And every month that he renews his library card, he gets a new stamp. And here they are. Look at that. 70 months worth of magical stamps. Now, if you can't see anything, that's okay. It's a magical stamp. Only wizards and people, other practitioners of magic can see it. But if you stick around long enough, you will get exposed to enough magical knowledge and enough magical presence to be able to see it fairly quickly. It doesn't require anything other than just hanging out. But Romans, thank you once again for your continued support for 79 months. We're almost to 80 months. That's crazy. Here is your 79-month stamp. Boom. Look at that. Look at that. That's beautiful. I've never seen an 80-month stamp. We're going to see one eventually. Posted up. Okay, excellent, Quentin. Thank you. What head is this kit from? This head here. What head is that from? It's from which Space Marine head is it from? I honestly don't remember. I honestly don't remember. I think it was one of the Space Marine hero heads out of one of those, but I don't remember which one. It was just out and about, and I hadn't used it on anything else. It was just like, I have this Space Marine body that I don't really want to do a helmeted head on, and I have this head flying around, this other head lying around that looks really cool and intimidating, so let's put it on there. That's what I did. Is Necromunda a different thing than 40k or a specific setting? The answer is yes. Necromunda is in the 40k world. It is in the universe of Warhammer 40k, but it is its own. It's its own thing within that. Necromunda is a planet in the Segmentum Solar, which means it's close to Terra, in the 40k universe. The reason I say it's its own setting is because the models and things like that, and the units and the games that are set in pure Warhammer 40,000 don't really have rules or a way to play them very well within the Necromunda game, and vice versa. The gangs in Necromunda don't really work well outside of Necromunda because their power level is so different. 40k is militaries and commando forces and highly trained warriors fighting each other. Necromunda are hive gangs, industrialists, merchant guilds fighting it out amongst each other. It's gangs of New York in cyberpunk, in some kind of cyberpunk Mad Max hell world, basically. So it is the scale is completely different. They don't really interact with each other at all, but Necromunda is in the 40k universe. Skaven are not in 40k at this time. They are purely fantasy. I saw a Necromunda image and there was a Skaven with 2 heads. Ever thought about doing a Tyberos kit bash? I'm new here, so I'm just wondering. I haven't done any Space Sharks at all. Tyberos is interesting, but I also think he's overhyped by a lot of people. But if I could find the pieces enough pieces to make a cool Tyberos, that could be pretty cool. Yeah, but I also think he's overhyped in a lot of ways. But that doesn't diminish his cool factor by any means. Now, for who you saw a 2-headed Skaven, that's entirely possible. I mean, Necromunda is full of industrial waste with mutagenics and things like that within all of the industrial runoff. So it is entirely possible that you saw some form of mutant rat person with 2 heads, and that would fit within Necromunda just fine. So that is entirely possible. But Skaven as a race don't really exist within 40k or Necromunda. You could have like a rat mutant colony or tribe or group of mutants. You could absolutely do that. One of my in the last campaign we did, one of the guys did exactly that. He took a bunch of Skaven models and modified them and gave them more sci-fi-esque weaponry and ran them using House Khador rules for a gang from House Khador, which are kind of like both the most religious but also the most technologically impoverished gangs, and he ran them as Skaven very, very easily. It worked out really well. Yeah, no, absolutely. Keep an eye on the channel for more Necromunda lore. I'm trying to do a video every day. I haven't done very well this week, but a video every day just on Necromunda lore. I do need to also get back into making other videos as well, but I've been really enjoying making the Necromunda lore videos about the different houses and stuff. So if you want to learn more about Necromunda, do give me a follow and keep an eye on my videos, because I've got one playlist that does of an overview on all of the clan houses already. So I've already got that out. One video for each of those and an overview of Necromunda. And we'll be doing more videos. And the next videos I'm going to do is focusing on what is a hive on Necromunda, like what, and then probably talking about the different sections of the hive and things like that. If anybody has any questions about Necromunda that they'd like me to see me talk about on a video, please don't hesitate to let me know. I'm trying to go through a lot of the fundamentals, but I also don't want to be boring with it. So if there's something that's you're questioning, I can answer it here, or I can or I can make a video about it later. In 40k, humans are kind of scavenged away, spreading all over. Thanks for the reply on Tybros. Yeah, absolutely, Blood Course. And you're right. Humans are kind of like that. How long have I been painting miniatures? About 26 years, but I've only been working on trying to get better, like really good at painting miniatures, since 2018. And I am a fairly slow learner. It takes a lot for me to get out of my comfort zone and really try. I've seen plenty of people, like Hoodguard is a great example, who started painting miniatures a year or two ago, and he's already winning competitions. He's an incredible painter, and he outpaints me by a lot. So there are some people that are just genuinely more driven and better learners than I am. But I plug away, and I enjoy this quite a bit, and I enjoy encouraging people and seeing other people grow. Hey, Bitter. Yes, indeed, Emperor Spears. We're just this is an extra guy I had, and I wanted to paint him up as an Emperor Spear because I had this this add-on for the shoulder pad, and it's like, hey, let's do that. So he's a lot of fun. You're doing great. Keep up the great word, bud. Thank you, Shrug. I appreciate that. Have you seen the Hey Gears color 3D printer making minis? Yeah, I know. There's. I haven't seen the one from Hey Gears. The only one I've seen from Hey Gears is from Black Magic Crafts YouTube video, and he said it was really, really good. I don't think he had the color printing one. And hey, printing in color is going to happen, and that's going to allow a lot of people to just print their armies in color so they don't have to paint it. That's fantastic. That's awesome. And that's going to be very useful for a lot of people. But I enjoy this process. I rarely play very many games. Like, I'll play Necromunda, I'll play Warcry, but for me, painting is the hobby. Painting is the thing that I enjoy. And so I'll not stop painting anytime soon. This has been my favorite chapter since the book came out. That's awesome. Yeah, it's a good book. I need to reread it at some point. It's been a little while since I've read it, but yeah, it was one of the first. It was the only Emperor Spear book that I had read, and it also, if I'm thinking of the same book, it's got the Mentors chapter in it, which was at one point one of my favorite chapters. So. Two really, really cool chapters in it. All right, let's get back to working on the leathers here. So we're going to go with a little bit more wear and tear on the outside corners. And I'm trying to keep this kind of light. The outside corners, that's where a lot of impacts and scratches and things like that happen. So I'm using really, really small brush strokes to make this look fairly uneven, but still kind of in a particular pattern. I don't want to go too strong with it though. And this is where teaching yourself to kind of develop muscle control is really helpful, because if I push too hard, then I get big blotches here and that doesn't look right. But if I don't push hard enough, then no paint comes off the brush. So what I want ideally is just enough pressure to get a little paint off the brush and to make a little mark, and then not enough pressure to get a bunch of paint to come off the brush, because then I'm losing any of the small fine detail that I'm trying to create here, and I'm just getting just a giant splotch, which is not what I'm looking for. Now I'm just going to take some really, really lighter color and just touch it here and there. Now after this dries, I am going to give this a glaze of a darker brown again, because I don't want it to be this stark. It doesn't need to be this intense of a white, but I want the value differences there. Never got the nerve to start painting minis. Also forgot to ask, what do you think of Nova Marines? I haven't looked into Nova Marines very much, Blood. Nova Marines are definitely one that I'd like to paint at some point. I want to paint like every chapter at some point. I enjoy painting and kit bashing above all else. I buy minis if it looks sick. Yeah, absolutely better. I'm right there with you. Don't get me wrong, I love painting, but the scale is hard for me. I like painting the 8-inch tall stuff. I totally understand that, Mr. Olive. Totally understand that. Favorite chapters? Rainbow Warriors. Now, before anybody like freaks out or anything, the Rainbow Warriors were one of the original chapters that was displayed in the 1987 rulebook for the very first edition of Warhammer 40,000, called Warhammer 40,000 Rogue Trader. Now, in that rulebook, they said there were 1,000 Space Marine chapters, and here's 12 examples. And within those examples were things like the Blood Angels, Space Wolves, Iron Hands, Ultramarines, and several others like Silver Skulls, Blood Drinkers, Flesh Terrors, and one of them was Rainbow Warriors. And that was it. That's all you got. You didn't get history on any of the chapters, because in 1987, none of those chapters had been fleshed out with any kind of background or anything. It wasn't until later, in later editions, that we started getting like distinct lore for each individual chapter. But in that original one, the Rainbow Warriors were an original Space Marine chapter used as an example, and then after that they disappeared. They disappeared up until about 8th edition, in which case, at one point in the 8th edition rulebook, they were mentioned by name as taking part in some crusades many centuries ago, but that was the extent of what they were given. The Rainbow Warrior homeworld Prism is still listed on Imperial maps, but it's record deleted. So you will see this symbol over the next to the planet of Prism, and it'll say it should say like record expunged or record deleted. So we don't know what happened to them, but they have been mentioned here and there, and this is a more modernized version of their paint scheme. Blood scores, we don't know. It's never answered. Like I said, when the one edition that they were fully acknowledged in, the idea of successor chapters or even the core chapters didn't exist. The idea of there were 20... Oh, wait, what? Mythic Amethyst Minis, thank you so much for the raid. Why why didn't I get my alert? I completely ignored a raid because I didn't hear it come through. What happened? Streamlabs, what are you doing? No, I moved it away from Streamlabs. It's in my alerts tab. I don't know, big dog. I'm so sorry. That is entirely my fault. Let me edit. Well, now I'm really upset. Do you have to step away from the PC? I'm trying. Hey, no worries, Mythic Amethyst. Have a fantastic rest of your night. Thank you so much for the raid. I am so sorry. I do not understand what's happening. Why my raids aren't working. I got to figure that out. Well, I don't know why my other alerts aren't working either. Yay, thank you. You too. That's really upsetting. That's really, really upsetting. Yeah, Bitter, I can see that. Absolutely. Yeah, Blood Cores, the Rainbow Warriors, in my headcanon, they are a successor chapter of the Ultramarines, but mixed with the last remaining Loyalist Thousand Sons. The few Loyalist Thousand Sons that remained after the heresy. They and a bunch of Ultramarines were spun off the Ultramarine chapter to establish their own kind of psychic heavy chapter. Yeah, Chibi Rainbow Warrior. Yeah, this is a repaint of one of the Chibi Space Marines, Chibi Primaris Marines that Games Workshop put out a little while ago. Yeah, I've got a whole bunch of them. I am working on a lieutenant project where I've built a Space Marine lieutenant using every version of power armor except for Mark 1, because that's not a Space Marine. That was a Thunder Warrior. So Mark 2 all the way up to Mark 8. There was no Mark 9 made ever. That doesn't exist because Primaris goes straight to Mark 10. So I've got one lieutenant of every mark of power armor except for one built, and I've been painting them up as Rainbow Warrior lieutenants. So I still need to get back to that at some point, but that's my favorite. That's my favorite chapter. Now, if for the more official, like or publicly acknowledged chapters, Ultramarines are my favorite. But my favorite Trader Marines are the Word Bearers. You know how Magnus did nothing wrong? Logar did nothing wrong. The Emperor punished Logar for telling the truth. And Guilliman's figuring that out. He's figuring it out. He's figuring out that Dad's actually effectively a god now, and he's going to have to deal with that. Oh, also Logar basically won because the Imperium now follows the scriptures that he wrote. Logar did nothing wrong. Logar is actually successful in his desire for the Imperium of man to worship his father as a god, because the Lectitio Divinitatis, the core scripture of the imperial cult, was written by Logar towards the middle to beginning of the Heresy. Oh, red Corsairs are pretty cool. Red Corsairs are pretty cool. Is this because he's bald? Maybe. They'll show off Mark 9 and Warhammer 41K, right? Oh, no, Noise Marines are awesome. I've got some Emperor's Children models that I need to put together and do stuff with eventually. But you see here how I took a very, very thin wash of my of one of my mixes of earlier brown, and I just went over all those really, really bright areas, and you see how it dulled them down a bit, so they're not quite as stark anymore, and they all kind of blend together a little bit now. And so that was just using a glaze of one of my lighter browns, kind of my middle brown there, and to bring everything back. And now the leather still looks like it's been used and worn, and it's not brand new, but it's also not like screeching your eyeballs out anymore. I don't understand what's happening with my alerts. I'm really kind of freaking out here. Why are these not working? That's not what I want. A wizard would like to renew their membership. What's happening? Sorry guys, I'm trying to play around with some... A wizard would like to renew their membership. Okay, so that worked. A wizard would like to renew their membership. Oh, it's super delayed. That's so weird.
A wizard is never late.
Yeah.
So
it's showing that raid.
Nor is he early. He arrives precisely.
Why did it
when he
show
means to.
Mystic's raid? That's so bizarre. I'm still super upset by that. I'm sorry. You need to contact attack priest, right? I do. Especially when the edge is like an overhang, like how the holster meets the armor. Wait. Man, I have a generic painting question. How do you get a clean border between two different colors, especially when the edge is like an overhang, like the holster meets the armor? Okay, yeah. So, a clean edge. The easiest way to do it is with something called dark lining, where you come in, you've got that edge there, and you take a darker color, and you use that to draw a line between the two systems with the tip of your brush, or between the two details with the tip of your brush. So, for example, let's say I want to separate these two plates here. Let's zoom in even more. So I want to separate these two plates so they're more visually distinct. And I want to make it easier for the human eye to see that they are distinct. So I can take a really dark blue, like a really dark blue, and I can just dark line with the tip of my brush right through there. And now that is going to be a little bit more visually separated, and it'll also appear to be a cleaner line between the two details because it's acting as a drop shadow, but it's also just acting as a visual separator between the two. And I can do that here. Right there. Now, if we're talking about like between the pouch and this and like the armor plate, the easiest thing to do if you don't want to do the black line is just go back in between the two and make sure you're cleaning it up. But the other thing to do is you can black line in between these, or even just dark lining. Like I'm technically dark lining because I'm not using black. I'm using a really dark blue that you can make with black, but I'm not using pure black. But that's the easiest, that's really the easiest way to do it. The other way to do it is just don't let the colors from one surface get onto the other surface. But the problem there is if they're close in relative value or brightness, the human eye is still going to kind of visually blend them together, just within within the viewer's own brain. So you need some kind of brightness. You need a break in the brightness between one surface and another surface if they're similar in brightness. Which is why dark lining helps, because it creates a break in that. You gotta like, okay, this is kind of bright, this is kind of bright, this isn't too bright, but all of a sudden black, and then it goes to the next detail, and that causes your eye to go, oh, that's where this stops, and a new thing begins, and it just becomes more visually obvious to the brain that one detail has ended and another has begun, and that helps to give the appearance of a clean break between the two, even if it's not perfectly smooth or perfectly neat and tidy. The brain thinks it looks more smooth and tidy that way because it's got a big jump in value from one thing to the next. So you're kind of tricking the brain. Yeah, you're very welcome, Naresh. You're very welcome. All right, let's see. We've got 8 minutes before our first scheduled break. So we'll keep working on this for now. Okay. So we did some of the leather work. That's where that is there, and so that'll be kind of this angle here. Also be right through here. I'm trying to, this is where the core of the highlight is on this side, and you can see I'm trying to keep it as if the light's all coming from one direction here. So I'm coming over to here, and I want to make sure that it's in the same general orientation here, because this needs to be convincing, somewhat convincing anyway. Doesn't have to be perfect, but it needs to look as if the light is all on all these different surfaces is coming from the same direction at the same angle. But that also means that I have to look at each one of these and say, okay, yes, the light's coming because this is angled like this. The light is going to bounce off a little bit more like this. You got to make some judgment calls, and that's where that's where the practice comes in. That's where repeating. That's why I don't really get tired of painting Space Marines, because each time I paint a Space Marine, even though it's the same freaking thing every single time, but I get to try new things and I get to try and improve on the last one I did, and get feedback, and then it's okay. This didn't really read properly last time, so let's try it this way and see if I can get it to read properly this time. And it's like having a familiar guitar piece or a familiar piano piece or anything like that, or a familiar drill in sports that you can take to just recenter yourself and like, I'm confident in everything, painting everything about this, so I don't have to think too hard except on the stuff that I'm trying to improve. Then I can, that's when I can focus in on. Everything else is pretty straightforward. Everything else doesn't require anywhere near as much thought, except for the new thing that I'm trying, the thing that I'm trying to improve. Whereas if I was trying to do this on like an Eldar, and I was trying to improve my lighting on an Eldar, well, I don't paint that many Eldar. I painted a few. I don't paint that many. So I'm having to think a lot more about a whole bunch of different things all at once, as opposed to just trying to improve one thing, if that makes sense. The model looks great. Hey, thanks, InLifer. I appreciate that. Thank you. What chapter is it? It looks so familiar. This is the Emperor's Spears. How do I blend metallics to give something like a muzzle burn effect? You would layer the metallics, or you're going to use metallics and washes, because unless you've got colored metallics, where's a good example? Do I have anything that I can use as an example for this? I don't have a good example piece for this. Let me think. It usually goes hay colored, purple. Yeah, it's like heat staining. Yeah. So let me pull this up here. So heat staining, what you're talking about is called heat staining. That's one word for it. And this is an example of an exhaust pipe, most likely off of some kind of motorcycle, or possibly something else that has been heat stained. Okay? And here you can see how the colors change. You've got your standard metal here, your original metal up at the top, and then as the heat travels down, it causes the metal to actually change colors. And this is a process that a lot of people take advantage of. This is how blued steel or gunmetal steel is created. It's blued, so it's subjected to higher temperatures for a certain period of time, and that causes the steel to turn more blue. And that's where the blued steel comes from. You could also do this with certain pieces of brass and things like that. It's blued brass. A lot of watchmakers and people like that use that as a decorative piece, but it creates a color shift here. So here we've got our steel, and then it goes into kind of a hay or golden color. This is kind of a hay yellow, and then it goes into a little bit more orangey, a little bit more gold. Then it goes into a purple, like a reddish purple, and then it goes into a bluish purple, into kind of a regular blue, and then it goes into this kind of tarnished steel color here, almost kind of a slightly grayer, duller steel. But this is the color transition you do, and what most people will do is they won't use metallics for this. They'll paint the whole thing silver, and then they'll use glazes, or they'll use washes or shades, which are very transparent, to do each one of these. That does mean you need to be a little careful. I mean, because you can do like yellow, you can do a ring of yellow, then some reddish wash, and some purple or blue wash, and then back to silver. Other people use an airbrush for that, but you know, the airbrushes can be hard. They're easier to get now, but there's no reason for someone just starting out to do an airbrush. But this is the color pattern you're going to want to go with, and you could do this with metallic paints. You would just use steel, and then a gold, and then like a purple metallic and a blue metallic, and then back to a darker steel. But this is the color pattern you'd want to do. Oh, okay. Ads are our break is starting. Our scheduled break that I can't skip is starting now. So we will be back here in just a few minutes.
I felt the roses fall at my feet. Oh, they're going for me. On my tombstone, I just hope that it reads. Scantily clad woman. Scantily clad man. Scantily clad woman. Scantily clad man. Scantily clad woman. Scantily clad man. Scantily clad woman. Scantily clad man.
Yes! And go, flush. The answers keep melting. Fill the frame.
Yes.
And yes. I gotta go down. Yes. Beautiful.
Oh my god. Oh my god. And action.
The queen passed out in her balcony when I came out. The king ordered his men to close their eyes and say a prayer out loud. Scantily clad woman. Scantily clad man. Scantily clad woman. Scantily clad man. The Pope fled at once.
All right, and we are back. Welcome back, everyone. Natrustigus. Ooh, excuse me. Natrustigus. My favorite Necromunda band is, or gang is Squats, followed by Escher at the moment. How to paint Thousand Suns without without wanting it all to end. You just don't end it. You keep painting. That's you chose a set of models that has a giant amount of detail and things like that. The only way to get through that is to not end it all. You power through, or you choose a different. You acknowledge that maybe you made a mistake in choosing that particular faction, and you choose a different faction. There are some models that there is no easy way to get around the fact that they are not going to be a huge amount of fun to paint for certain parts of it. There's just no way to get around that. There are some models and some factions that are just like, yeah, this is a labor of love. That's what you get. That is how this works. And yeah, if that's not enough, then totally understand. You're probably going to need to choose different models. That's why it's so incredibly important that you look at the army that you're choosing, and you choose one that you are going to be willing to put the unreasonably large amount of time that it takes to paint some models. You got to be willing to do that. So that takes some inner reflection of like, am I willing to put hours and hours into every single one of these rubric Marines painting their trim? No? Okay. We're going to do something else. There are some things that can make it a little bit easier, like maybe metallic Sharpies, that might help. Spray painting the rubrics metallic before, and then just painting the regular, like going in with like regular paints and painting in all of the blue areas and leave the metallic areas alone. Those are a couple ideas, but there's nothing that's going to prevent you from having to do some of that mind-numbing work, unfortunately. I wish I had better news. I'm really not feeling a lot of these reflections. I was feeling them at first, but right now I'm just not feeling how separated they are. I don't like how sudden they are without also being really bright. Because if they're gonna be, I mean, if they're gonna, they're too dull to be like really good specular, like metallic specular highlights, but they're also, I don't know. I don't know. They don't look right. And I'm trying to figure out the proper verbiage to explain why I feel like they don't look right. It's like their positioning is okay for specular. It's okay. It's not perfect. It's okay. But their value level isn't bright enough or isn't high enough for the shape they're taking or the intensity of the blends. It's not specular enough to be this sharp in its general shape, and I think that's what's driving me nuts about it. But I also don't want it to be like a lot brighter, because I don't want this to be like a bright metallic armor. I want this to be kind of shiny armor that's reflecting light properly, but isn't like full-on non-metallic metal. And maybe I got off on the wrong foot all over again. Would be a good starter army for someone to just getting into 40k. Painting wise, probably something like Space Marines or possibly Orcs. There's a reason why they make up a lot of the beginning starter sets. The Space Marines are fairly straightforward to paint. They don't have lots of crazy detail. They've got big open areas it's easy for a newer painter to get paint onto those areas. Orcs are kind of like Mad Maxi, so they can be a little messy and it doesn't matter as much. So those are probably going to be the two easiest in terms of a painter. In terms of a game, I have no idea. I don't play the game anymore. I haven't played the game in a long time, so in terms of rules, I don't know. But in terms of painting, I'd say Space Marines or Orcs. Maybe if we're talking about 40k, Space Marines or Orcs. If we're talking Age of Sigmar or one of the fantasy ones, I'm really not certain. Night Lords are probably in the same bucket as Thousand Suns as far as painting, I would imagine. Yeah, they've got so many details, then yeah, I'd say so. I'd say it's probably pretty darn close. Alright, I need to wrap this up here real quick just so we can get into the community spotlight. So give me just a second. I want to try and pump this up just a little bit with a little off white, blue-white, or white-blue. See what it looks like when I pump it up a little farther than I think I should. Yeah, looks okay. Again, I don't think it's... See, this actually I think looks fairly good. It's kind of shiny, but it's not like super shiny. This I think looks fine. Back here is driving me nuts. So. How often do I paint Age of Sigmar? Not terribly often, just because I've got some specific ideas of what I want to paint. I did spend about 2 years painting Crimson Cursed City, and that was all Age of Sigmar. I'm working on painting this guy just as for fun, as an old Stormcast Eternal in non-metallic bronze, and so I'm just playing around with him. I do have the Darkwater game, the newer Warhammer Quest game that I want to paint at some point, and it's all Age of Sigmar. But yeah, I don't paint a whole lot of Age of Sigmar super consistently. Part of the reason is because I just have so many Space Marines, and again, it's really easy to work on lighting because they're so open. So when I'm trying to educate myself and try new things, that's usually the easiest model to do it on. I do have a couple Age of Sigmar models on order on the way. One of them is the new Butcher from the new Ogre Kingdoms, or the new Ogre Maw Tribes. I'm going to be painting him up for Golden Demon. But yeah, that's the main. And then I also have her for Old World. She's not Age of Sigmar, she's Old World. But she's in sub-assemblies right now. So I'll be painting her up for Old World Golden Demon. Yeah. What's the most profitable crimes I could commit to be able to afford this hobby? Yeah, I can't answer that. Yeah, I can't divulge that information. I'd probably end up in jail for encouraging people to commit crimes for plastic toy soldiers. I will say that, you know, supporting your local store is pretty important, but when it comes to budget, eBay is a great way to get secondhand 40K minis. Other stores like that, stores that sell used 40K stuff or Warhammer stuff, you can get some really good deals at those as well. But eBay's been really helpful. But I do make sure I purchase as much as I can for my local stores. Black Market, Etsy. Yeah, I mean, you can. Absolutely. The new Pyrocaster sculpt and the upcoming Warhammer Heroes looks really cool. Yeah, the upcoming Warhammer Heroes stuff looks really, really cool. All right, we're going to set this aside. It's time to do a community spotlight. I should probably have some kind of like transition or sting for that from one to the other. Let's see. Let's bring up Discord. All right. Time for community spotlight. So I'm grabbing all of the stuff people have posted since last Friday. Holy shit. Quentin, I see your Spasmarin here. All right, so there's all the works in progress, stuff opened up. So let's get down to business to look at minis. All right, so this is from Pikmin Horror. This is a competition, part of a competition piece he's working on. And Pikmin is incredibly good at darker skin tones. He's taught classes on it, he's wrote articles on it, he's a gentleman of a darker skin tone himself, so he's got, you know, vested interest in being really good at it, and I'm continually blown away by how good he is at working in all the colors into here. So here you can see we've got darker skin tones, but then around the mask you've got, you know, red that goes in here, but then look down in here, right where the nose meets the cheek there, that's slightly red there, and then as that moves up into the nostrils, it kind of shifts back into the more standard color here, and then as it goes up into the to the nose up here, it goes more yellow. So we've got going from your normal kind of Afro-Caribbean darker skin tone, kind of a neutral skin tone there, and then into more red, and then up into yellow, and slightly more yellow, and there's just slight color shifts in here, and that just helps give the whole thing a lot more life, because not only are there more blood vessels here, but there's also what's called subsurface scattering, where if you have you ever taken a flashlight and put it behind your hand or behind your fingers, and you can kind of see the light through them, that red glow where of the light traveling through the translucent skin from one side to the other, that red glow is subsurface scattering. So when you are painting a miniature from a particular light angle, and you've got light coming off there that would normally cause light to go through the skin and travel back out into your eye, you can make it a little bit more red to give it that feel that the light's going through the skin and from the light source, and then being scattered out into your eye after traveling through the skin a bit. And that can be very difficult to do, but that is something if you ever hear somebody talk about subsurface scattering, that's what they're talking about, that phenomenon. And it adds a lot of life. It makes the skin look and feel more translucent and therefore more alive, as opposed to just a piece of plastic that light doesn't travel through at all. All right, so there's that. Here's another angle. There's another angle. I'm looking forward to seeing the rest of this. Now, I don't know if Pickman's still here. He was here earlier, but he probably wasn't able to stick around. I'm interested in see if this is part of a larger bust, or if this is part of a figure here. Oh, there you are. Hey, Pickman. I didn't see you post for a little bit, so I wasn't sure if you were still here or not. Is this part of a larger bust or a larger figure? Does the Necromane gangs have a collective council of sorts, or is it just free for all? So Blood Cores, each clan house has their own kind of governance, but no, there's no like congress of clan houses where they all come together and meet and work things out. That's not how it works. They are in constant conflict with one another. They still have to work together because they're responsible for a lot of the production of Necromunda. And if they don't produce equipment and materials and small arms for Necromunda to ship out, Lord Helmar and the noble houses and the Astra Militarum will come in and they will destroy them. So they are forced to work together as a larger clan house, and forced to barter and trade and do mercantile stuff. But on the individual gang levels, there's lots of conflict. But so it's all one big balance. It's a spearhead or an old project. Okay, is this the same? Okay, I got you. I'm using it as an example for my skin class at LVO. Fantastic. Well, this is going to be good. This is going to be really good. Very nice. Here is another. Is this Storm? Really nice example of much darker skin tone, and then the white hair. She's beautiful. Yeah, Storm. Very nice. I'm looking forward to seeing how she turns out. She's looking really good right now. Hey, Jakey. Very nice, Pickman. Is she also going to be used in something at LVO, or is this just is this another piece for something else? Same. Okay. So it's zoom in. Oh, there's lots of purples in here. Some blues. Yeah, blues and purples down here. Yeah, nice. Excellent. All right, I believe this was... It is Storm from X-Men. That's exactly who it is. Count Zacula. These are some Emperor's Children he's working on. Very nice. I like the gold. I love the how shiny and saturated this is, and then you take it down and you work it all down with your enamel washes. Count Zacula is a big fan of like the grimdark painting style, so lots of environmental grittiness and weathering put over models to make them look a lot really textured, and it's a really cool style. You can see all that texturing on the cloth here. And you can see the difference between how bright this purple is and how bright this gold is, and then after his enamel washes, you've still got good purple saturation there, but it is dulled down, and the gold looks old and corroded. I mean, gold doesn't really corrode, but that's really nice. All right, so this was from someone's dad. Thoradin. This is a giant mech, I am assuming orc, made by his dad. That is very, very cool. See Necron bits, obviously Imperial bits. Look at that. Power swords, which on what is, I'm assuming, I can't even see what that is. Like, I don't know if that's a wing or an arm. That's cool. Lot of guns, lot of DACA. This is really cool. Very orky indeed. Yeah, that's gonna be pretty cool to see painted if it ever is painted. Something this big and complex would be pretty intimidating to paint in any level of real detail. There's so many nooks and crannies of just like, oh god, when am I going to be done? There's so many tiny little things that I forgot to paint. Now I got to go back and paint them. Haven't done any painting these past few weeks. That's okay. Sometimes you just don't. You don't have the mojo. You're just not feeling it. That's okay. That is fine. Now this is from Quapple. He was in here under a different name earlier. Also started with a Q. Where'd it go? Quentin. Yeah, Quentin Apple and Quapple. It me, Quentin. So tell me what your objective with this is. I see all the base coats. Was this varnished or is this all weathering? Because I've seen more varnish frost like this before, but I don't want to say it's frosted varnish unless I'm and if it's the weathering that you did. It varnished. Okay. So it wasn't frosted like this when you first did it. Been through Helmut. I gotcha. Yeah. Sometimes spray varnish is frost like this, and there's a couple different ways that you can say that you can hit them with olive oil, and that can help reduce some of the frosting, or you can just hit them with gloss varnish, let that completely dry, and that will get rid of most of the frosting, and then you can re-varnish over it. But all the weathering looks pretty good. The only thing I'm concerned about is the only thing that like really indicates this is an ultramarine is the hints of blue in the ultramarine symbol. I think that the weathering that is on the other marine that you did, this one here, that doesn't look frosted, this is much easier to see that this is an ultramarine for sure. But yeah, no, these look really clean before the frosting. These look really clean, and then lots and lots of mud. Yeah, they do look proper muddy. No, I like all the texturing down here, all the texturing and everything, and you can see the blue through it. So you can tell who they are. They've just been slogging through it a lot. This is great. Good job. It was not. Okay, I like the second one. Good work either way. Yeah, I agree. Good work. Very muddy trench warfare. Slogging through it for the to bring death to the Emperor's enemies. Good job. Keep going. Yeah, I like how clean this looks underneath all the armor. I'm just looking at like paint execution, and the edge highlighting is good. It's pretty good. I've seen a couple colors there, I think. This looks nice and clean. Application. I'm not seeing too much gold splattered around. Yeah, this is well executed. And then the weathering, I love all the texture and all the caked on mud and dirt. I think that looks great. Good job. All right, and this is something someone was working on during the first part of the stream. So this is Sinjin working on this really cool bust, laying out light. Is this going to be metallic or non-metallic, Pikmin? I like all the light mapping. If y'all ever hear of somebody called sketching on miniatures, Pikmin Horror or Sinjin is one of the ones who just like really does lots of sketching. Really did a lot of that early on before it became pretty popular. And then, you know, Matt DiPietro was doing it at the same time or just after, and that became really defining for Matt. But Sinjin was doing this for a while before, really laying down where light hits, where the shadows are, where the midtones are, where the highlights are, mapping that down in just black and white. Because you can see that here. Even if he adds color into this, you can already see a lot of the value shifts in here. So we can see the drop shadow from the arm here, and then we've got our fill light here, mid-tone, main highlight, and all the scratches. They've already got the dark shadow of the scratches, and then the white highlight underneath to show that it's more three-dimensional. It's like a three-dimensional scratch. He's working all that stuff out in black and white prior to adding any color. That's the main idea of sketching. And it looks really helps, especially if you struggle with like where highlight placement. It's a really good way to just do that without being distracted by colors. Which, you know, color can be a whole distraction in itself because it's pretty. Colors are pretty. But if you're just trying to nail down the mechanics of light placement, removing color from that and just going with just black and white is a great way to do that. And then when you're done, like, then it looks like you've painted a black and white picture, a black and white movie. Okay, so those are the works in progress. Now let me go check on completed projects. Here, see what people have been adding in here. What are these? I have no idea what those are, but they look cool. Oh, Gus, you got your completed RBD, your completed Paladin Enforcer on bike. Very cool. Let's go take a look at that after we take a look at this thing from Nerdy Tokyo. Look at this. I don't know what this is for. I don't know what game this is for. I don't recognize these models, but I'm really liking the purple and the magenta coloration and the basing. The basing has a nice contrast to these more mysterious magical colors. But I don't know what this game. I don't know what this game. Looks like some pikes or some halberds, poleaxes, and some kind of mage. Some beasts of some kind, a couple riders. The color scheme reminds me of like He-Man type color schemes, like a lot of those cartoons like Thrognar the Barbarian, He-Man, Thundercats, even G.I. Joe. Those types of cartoons where they had to produce a new cartoon at least every week, and they had to do hundreds if not thousands of frames per cartoon, so they were limited on the time, and they used a limited palette to make it nice and easy, so it gave this whole generation of people, including myself, this nostalgic vibe for these simple, contrasty color schemes that just dive straight down into our childhood. This reminds me a lot of that, and I love it. It's not overly complex. It's not overly busy. Nice. The colors are super poppy. I like it a lot. To get a nick or scratch, would you use an X-Acto knife or razor blade? If I was doing a physical nick or scratch, I'd probably use the tip of an X-Acto blade and just very, very, very lightly scratch. But oftentimes you can just paint it in, and it'll look just fine. Depends on how big of a nick or scratch you want to do, to be honest. All right, let's go over here. Gus the regular guys. Paladin Enforcer. This was a pretty converted model from an Atlan Jackal, which is a Genestealer cult model. I believe the legs are from the Atlan Jackal, or was that? And then the upper torso is from the Paladin Enforcers, but he's done a really good job of marrying the two to make it look, more believable that this is like an as designed horse. And I love the fact that he's got the numbers on the back. I think these are decals. I don't use decals very much because they frankly intimidate me. They've intimidated me since I was very little, for whatever reason. But it looks great. Very nicely done. The legs are jackal legs. I had to fill in the sheen and guard. Okay, I gotcha. Yeah, then it looks pretty. It looks pretty from here. It looks pretty seamless. You did a great job. Really nice. All right. Is anybody else have anything else? Have anything they want to add in before we end the community spotlight? For those of you who did submit something, thank you so much. I love seeing what you've been working on. For those of you who asked for feedback, I hope that was helpful. I can certainly give more feedback, in text form if you would like it. You just need to let me know. But otherwise, thank you all so much for adding in the stuff you've been working on. I always love seeing that. All right. Very helpful. Thank you. Good. I'm glad. So let's pop back over here. I'm going to do one last scan to make sure nothing got added. Yeah, I don't see anything new in works in progress, anything new in completed projects, nothing else calling me out. Okay, cool. All right. Well, thank you once again for hanging out for that. It's very helpful. Thank you. Yeah, okay, cool. I saw that. Happy to help. Happy to do what I can. All right, so one thing I want to do here is, you see this edge here on this shoulder, on this this elbow pad. Now I would normally just let our edge highlight fade off into pure shadow. If the elbow pad was pointing down and fully hidden from the light, but since it's pointed out and it is exposed to the light, I'm still going to edge highlight a lot of it. Maybe not all of it, because I do want some dynamicism there. I don't want it all to be just overly done. But we are going to bring up the edge highlights on multiple different areas here. And that way it just doesn't fade into nothing out of nowhere, even though it's fully exposed to the sun or to the upper light. Okay. I'm going to bring up the highlight here on the inner arm a little bit. Now, one thing I am struggling with is like with these particular paints. These are Monument paints, which are good paints. I use these very, very often, often to the exclusion of other paints. But one thing they do is when they are pretty thin, they fade a lot. So as they dry, they lose a huge amount of their transparency. So if you're already working with them kind of transparent and thin, they just seem to like, oh, it looks good. That's a good level of value. I don't want to go much brighter because now it just doesn't look right. And then all of a sudden it fully dries. You're like, did I even paint anything? So that is something to keep in mind with Monument, and most other acrylic paints do the same thing. But I've noticed it a lot more with Monuments. They do tend to phase. Is that Mr. Freeze? I mean, it could be. You could say it's Mr. Freeze, but it's no, it's a Space Marine of the Emperor's Spears chapter. Just about almost as badass as Mr. Freeze. I'm a big fan of Mr. Freeze. He's a person who does horrible things, but really for a really good reason. Now that doesn't justify the ends. Do not justify the means. I just understand his reasoning, and I sympathize with it. Because he's trying to save his wife for the most part in most of the worlds. He's just an absolute monster for the way he does it and the number of people he hurts. that's how a lot of the Batman villains are. You kind of understand what's driving them, and it tends to be a fairly understandable reason, but they're just like truly awful people. Like Harley, I get Harley Quinn. Like, I understand in the worlds where she's not just batshit insane, which is not that many of them, but when she's just not batshit insane and she's just trying to be a supportive partner to someone who she feels is, you know, being unjustly persecuted, or is not being given the type of treatment that she should, and she just wants to fix him. Like, I get that. She's dumb. She's trapped in a classic spiral of abuse. It's just that cycle where he beats the crap out of her and he says, "I'm sorry," and then she's like, "I could fix him." I get that. Like, I get it. But it is a classic cycle, and as a psychologist, she should be understanding that. She should see that. So kind of like starvation, great motives, just not so good as... Yeah. Yeah, and that's what... I mean, that's what a lot of them are. Honestly, my favorites were like... Harley is kind of like semi-redeemed and figures out that, like, the Joker's been using her, and she ends up breaking away from him. Like, I like those. I like those particular versions of Harley quite a bit. I think she's a pretty interesting character in those situations. Especially when she like hooks up with it gets in relationship with Poison Ivy in some of the continuums and some of the worlds. They end up being kind of a balancing force to each other, whereas the Joker was an unstable force for Harley. Poison Ivy tends to be a little bit more of a mitigating force, and Harley tends to be a mitigating force on Poison Ivy, and I like that. I think that's important. I think they become better people. I mean, they're still kind of like freaking crazy and generally doing more bad than good. Or, you know, I don't know how successful they are at it, but it really depends on the stories. But it's a healthier villainy, you know? It's a healthier villainy. And I like that. I like a healthy villainy. We like a supportive couple, as opposed to an abusive and exploitive couple. We like a supportive couple. If anybody has any questions about painting or anything like that, please don't hesitate to ask. I'm just going to keep on plugging away at this Emperor Spear here and just talk about whatever pops into my head. If anybody has any particular questions, don't hesitate to ask. That is what we're here for, to answer questions and encourage people in their miniature painting. Whether you're just starting out, or if you've been painting for a while and you just want to keep on getting better and want to kind of talk shop or anything like that. Love talking shop about miniature painting. If you have questions about Necromunda or the lore or anything like that, please feel free to ask that as well. I am pretty good at regular Warhammer lore as well, but Necromunda's kind of been my focus. Because it's a really interesting world, in my opinion. But happy to talk about Warhammer in general, or mini painting in general as well. Oh, it's looking good. I like how that looks like the backpack's being lit up. I like that a lot. That's looking nice. This, I like how this is looking a lot. This, I'm not sure. These don't look bad, but I'm still not sure about them. So I do want to cause this to expand out a little bit. Maybe diffuse it some. Let's see. For the Emperor! Plan on doing some Eliminator Jungle Snipers in the next project. Gonna try and use some gauze for ghillie suits. That's a good idea. Got any advice for kit bashing or any tips for kit bashing? Dry fit. Dry fit as much as you can. If we're talking about just general kit bashing, don't ever glue anything until you've blue tacked it together and you're fairly certain that it's working. When it comes to gauze, stuff like that, if you're just experimenting, I wouldn't experiment on the miniatures. I'd experiment like maybe create some like camouflaged barrels or piles of equipment, like small things that you can practice draping stuff on. And then don't just think about only gauze. Also think about using things like tissue paper, not toilet paper, not Kleenex toilet paper or anything like that, or Kleenex, like tissue paper, like the type that's used to pack boxes and things like that. Think about using tissue paper soaked in PVA that's a really good way to do like camo blankets. And then gauze can be done really well for ghillie. Just remember, ghillie suits tend to have a lot of stuff like coming off of them. Just do yeah, and also just dive in. Dive in. Don't forget to look at a lot of scale model resources. Check out scale modeling or even train videos on YouTube for different ways that people have tried to cargo nets and ghillie suits and camo blankets and things like that. Those are going to be really common in the scale model, especially scale model diorama areas of the hobby. So make sure you check them out as well. We've seen a lot of people using cheesecloth or masking tape for capes. Oh yeah, that's a good idea. Cheesecloth. I've not seen cheesecloth. That's an interesting idea. Masking tape. I've seen stuff like that. I haven't tried it. But yeah, that'd be pretty interesting. There's lots of different ways to do it to try and get that kind of an effect. Okay, so I think what I need to do is just embrace these final specular highlights and just get these specular highlights to be shiny. I'm tired of it just not looking quite right, but we're gonna keep these pretty small. Ew, stop. Knowing that this is going to fade, these are going to fade out a little bit is helpful. I don't have to worry about them being too terribly stark, but I do want them to be brighter than they are now because I'm tired of trying to balance this reflectivity with the midtones, and it's just not working. So I'm just gonna embrace the shiny a little bit more. No! I don't want to thin this out too much because I want, when I apply this paint, I want it to stick where I'm putting it. So, but I'm putting very small amounts of it down. My brush is a little damp, so there is some moisture in it, but I'm not thinning the paint very much at all. It's pretty thick on the brush, and that just allows me to really place it down very specifically where I want it to be and be pretty confident that it's going to stay there and not flow much. I don't want it to flow much. Oh, we're already an hour in. So, okay, at new break starting now. We will be back in just a couple of minutes. I just looked up just in time. But this is where we are with our Emperor Spears Space Marine. Still got more to do. This is a Space Marine of the Emperor's Spears chapter, which is an official chapter. It's not a homebrew chapter, but it's an official chapter within the Warhammer 40,000 universe. So if you've played the game Space Marine or Space Marine 2, he's one of those guys, but he's a different army of them. Thanks, guys. Appreciate that. All right, we'll be back in just a couple minutes, guys.
Upstage and had no shame. Lord, I swear On my tombstone, I just hope that it reads scantily clad woman. Scantily clad man. Scantily clad woman. Scantily clad man. Scantily clad woman. Scantily clad man. Scantily clad woman. Scantily clad man.
Yes! And go, go, flush, 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 flush. The answers keep melting. Fill the frame, fill the frame.
Yes.
And yes. Ionic down. Yes. Beautiful.
Oh my god. Oh my god. And action.
The queen passed out in her balcony when I came out. The king ordered his men to close their eyes and say a prayer out loud. Scantily clad woman. Scantily clad man. Scantily clad woman. Scantily clad man. The Pope fled at once when I walked up stage and had balcony when I came out. The king ordered his men to close their eyes and say out loud.
All right, we are back. How's everybody doing? Wolfenholme. Thank you so much for the subscription. I appreciate it. Let's get you your library card. So for those of you who do not know, we are in the Great Library of Magic. I am the useless wizard in charge of the Great Library of Magic, kind of its librarian. I was sent down here, was cast out of the School of Magic because I'm a useless wizard. So there's like, yeah, you probably shouldn't be renew their membership. Probably shouldn't be teaching if you're not good at magic, if you're a useless wizard. So they sent me down here instead to the Great Library, and now we watch over that and make sure that all the students are safe. Voodoo Turtle, thank you for renewing. We'll get you your stamp here in just a second. All right, Wolfenholme. Here are the terms of your library card. The bearer of this card is granted permission to remove materials from the Great Library for a period of no longer than 30 days. A penalty of 1 sip of paint water will be assigned to the bearer for each piece of material that is outside of the Great Library for every day beyond 30 days. The bearer resumes all responsibility for any material damage to, magical damage, or mishaps associated with, and possessions or exorcisms through checked out materials. Those are the terms of your library card. Now we will fill it out with your username here. Make sure I get Wolfenholme. There we go. Let that dry a bit. And then we will get you your very first month stamp, and then we will give Voodoo Turtle his 10-month stamp. Wolfenholme, here is your stamp, and here is your very first, there's your card, and here's your very first stamp. Boom, look at that. Beautiful. Gorgeous. Thank you so much. Now, in addition to your own library card, you now have your own very own wizard's hat in the chat. That hat will upgrade, with your membership seniority. But enjoy your hat. Make sure to keep it nice and clean. Wear it with pride. And Voodoo Turtle, let's get your library card out. There we go. This while I'm here. Voodoo Turtle, here is your library card, and here is your 10-month stamp. Boom, look at that. Now, you see, the difference between a 1-month stamp and a 10-month stamp is obvious. Look at that. I mean, it's just so much more. It just builds up month after month after month. Each successive stamp adding in more complexity to the stamp as it builds up. I mean, wait until like this is here. Let me show you. This one is a 79-month card. Look at that. Look how crazy and complex and intricate that is. Your stamp too could look just like this in a mere 78 months. Just saying. It gets really, really impressive as it builds up over time. But thank you so much for your support. I appreciate it. Appreciate you, friend. Keep up the great work. Thank you very much, Voodoo Turtle. I appreciate it. All right, so here is... Did I miss anything else? What is what for, Marcus? I didn't see your question. I don't know if you're still here or not. Thank you for the coin, by the way. You're talking about this guy. He's just fun. He's an Emperor's Spear that I was just painted up. All right, so we've done a lot of good work on him. Now, one of the things is they tend to have like a personalized symbol or something like that on this knee here, and then this knee tends to like the part of it tends to be gold. Like you can see here on the example, the left knee, that upper area is kind of often in gold. The right knee is that darker blue there. So I want to see if I can find some more examples of spears, Emperor's Spears, and see if I can find any, like, what are common markings that they've got. Now, looking at a lot of the other artwork, it's just veterans and other people who have that gold on their knee. Or at least I'm only seeing it on some veterans. I'm not even seeing it on all of them. So that doesn't seem to be like a super... I don't want to say super common, but it doesn't seem to be doesn't seem to be terribly common. Okay, this is... Oh, why didn't I find this before? All right, this is... Here we go. Here's some cool stuff. So, Emperor Spear's heraldry sheet. That's fantastic. So, the left pauldron is covered in runes of some sort. So, that's going to be some freehanding we do. I could have... the shoulder pads that this guy came with were not removable. So, I couldn't have added, like, done a different shoulder pad unless I took a Dremel to them, and that's a lot of work. Let's see. Chapter Master, known as the High King. Veteran Company, okay. He's not a veteran. We're not worried about that. Druids, okay. Oh, okay. Interesting. Okay, I'm going to have to look into that more. These are the runes that they use. Right greave markings. Okay, so here's some of the... Oh, interesting. Okay. Sergeant. Okay, cool. Battlefield rolls, helmets, ribbon ties, notable information, seals. Doesn't say anything about the knee pads, but this knee pad is gold. Is there gold anywhere else? No, it's just that knee pad. Why is it just that one knee pad? And it doesn't seem to be super common. Now, I'm going to do it because it's going to look cool. And that means I get to do some non-metallic gold. But why... What is going on? Why is that the only spot of gold? That seems odd. And why is it inconsistent? All right, well, we're going to do gold. We're going to do gold on that knee pad, whether it is consistent or not. So this knee pad under here, this arch is going to be gold, but that's the only bit. Now over here, we need to do some work on this knee pad here on what type of symbol is going to be there. Celestial Lions, Star Scorpions may bear their iconography. Okay. 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 I kind of like that. Right. So, what we're going to do is we're going to take, because I used a really dark blue on this, but I wanted to still read as just a dark blue, but also lit up the same way as the rest of these. We're going to use our shade color for the rest of the armor as our mid-tone on this, in this darker blue. So what that will do is it gives me the same kind of it gives me the same palette of colors to use, but I'm just starting with a darker version and working up, and so that when I do start working in these other colors like the gray blue, things like that, they'll still be cohesive with this dark blue will still be cohesive with all the other blues in the armor, but it will still be markedly darker. And so there's not going to be as much of an issue with, like, well, that just looks completely off, and I want it to look distinct, separate, obviously, but I also want it to be kind of harmonious, if that makes sense. So we're going to use this blue that we used for this as the shadow color for the rest of the armor as the mid-tone for this dark blue, and that means that we can use what we used as the initial highlights on the rest of the armor as our final highlight in this darker blue. We'll see how that ends up looking. This is me just visually, like verbally talking through my game plan in the hopes that it works out. If it doesn't work out, then, you know, that's fine. We know what our thought process was, and we can reevaluate and try again. Because we've got a specular highlight in the rest, I do want to do a bit of a specular highlight here with a very lighter blue, just for the light bouncing off right there. There. I think that looks like shiny dark blue. It's kind of the idea behind it anyway. Personally, I think that fits. It could be improved. I could expand it out a little bit more, but I don't want to mess with it too much. All right, so the last section of this armor to really do is back here. Keep this in line. Sorry, I'm being really quiet. Just kind of focusing here, trying to make sure I get more of this done. Anybody watch the finale of Miniature Masters? If you don't know, a lot of those people, or at least a couple of those people, stream here on Twitch. Trent streams under Big Dino Paints. AC Miniatures streams very, very regularly to a large number of people, and he's an extremely interesting person to watch his process. Amalia is streaming, I think, mostly on YouTube, but also on Twitch. I haven't been able to catch one of her streams yet, but I don't know if any of the others stream. You know, some of them make YouTube videos, and then I'm not sure what Josh does. I don't think Josh does any content creation other than every now and then doing like Instagram, but I could very well be wrong. I'm probably wrong, and I just haven't run into him. There we go. It's better. It's not perfect, but it's better. And again, we're not trying to do like, I guess I'm not really trying to do like display quality. I'm just trying to push on a couple fundamentals. You don't always have to try something that is higher level. You don't have to do the whole model at that higher level. If you really just want to focus on a couple things, then just focus on the one thing you want to push to a higher level, and then do the normal stuff on the rest of them. You don't have to destroy your mental health by saying everything that I do to a higher level, I have to do everything to a high level. No, that's not true. That's simply not true. I'm actually pretty happy that I pushed the highlight up so high on those last specular highlights. I think that actually looks pretty good. What up, Stud? Would love to paint like you one day. You can, absolutely. Nothing preventing it other than just practice and honestly just learning, studying how light reflects off of things is what I'm working on right now. And unfortunately that doesn't just come with just like putting brush to model. You kind of have to understand a little bit about how light works and how shapes work and things like that, and why light bounces off of certain things in a certain way. It sounds a lot more complicated than it really is, but that helps a lot. And that's really what I've been focusing on, is like trying to get light to look right or look more correct. Yes. Exactly. welcome. Make yourself at home. Hey, 3 Dennis. Welcome on in. One of my D&D group is from Argentina. She calls in and on Zoom or Discord, and she plays D&D with us. It's really cool. Hello. Just finished my Alaris squad, which brings my total minis painted to 5. Nice job, Bad Advice. Excellent. Crazy how much difference I see there on the first of the squad to the last. Yeah, and you will continue to see those types of differences as you continue to practice. Now, eventually that will slow down a little bit, and you kind of have to do more and more, because right now you're developing all of the basics, so you're going to see marked difference as you continue to go. Eventually that will slow down, just like leveling in an RPG or something like that, but you keep working at it and you'll continue to get better and better. It just you might not see as big of a difference sometimes, but yeah, just keep on going at it, and make sure you hold on to those older, your first minis. Don't repaint all of them. Keep some of them as souvenirs, as something for you to look back on and say, this is where I was a year ago, and this is where, and then you can look at some of your newer stuff and this is where I am now. And that's pretty cool. It's going to be a really useful thing for you to look at. Okay, let's see. I think we need to have edge highlights down here just to keep those visually separate a little bit. Okay. All right, next. Next. Red. Oh, pirate. You know what I don't get? I don't understand people who don't like... understand people who don't like melon. Melon's just so good. They're so yummy. I prefer watermelon out of most of the melons. Every now and then, when I'm at the grocery store, I'll just buy a small tray of watermelon, or if the season is right, I'll just buy a small watermelon. Cut that up. Munch on that over the next few days. So good. So yummy. So one of the symbols that is shown in the artwork, that heraldry sheet that I found, is a triple interlocked square that represents one of the crusades that these guys took on with 2 other chapters. So we're gonna try and depict that trio of squares here. without messing it up too much. And I don't think I've messed it up too much there, but we shall see. Now, these areas that are more highlighted will need brighter red sections because they're in the highlight. So they do need to be brighter. Alright, I think that's the closest I'm going to get with my eyesight the way it is right now. In my muscle control, but I'm actually pretty happy with that. Could make that a lot sharper, but it would be difficult to do with the lighting. Okay, now I need to decide what to do about the runes over on this shoulder pad. I am going to need to work on those. I am going to need to do those. Something else I want to work on is making sure these different panels on the armor are black lined. That way it is obvious that there is a panel there and I didn't just mess up the highlighting there. Okay. Better. Do I have all my grays? Some dark neutral gray, now some neutral gray, and then some bright neutral gray for the soft armor and behind the legs. All right, so now, once that's dried mostly, we're going to start tracking the highlights on the softer armor. Neutral gray right above and below the highlights on the armor, just because we want the light to appear to continue naturally from one surface texture to another, because that helps the entire process read more naturally. So we're going to take some neutral gray there, add that in. There's a couple more spots where it's not as important. There's just some light hitting that neutral gray there. Now up here in the elbow, there's going to be some neutral gray right on the outside here. On both of those here, it's going to be like right in there. Okay. Welcome back, Romans. Let's see. Now let's get some bright neutral gray and our last little shiny points. I do want to soften that a little bit. Some of these are a little too harsh. So we're going to take a little bit of that neutral gray again, and it's going to be a little bit thinner. We're going to go over the edges of that bright neutral gray and knock them back a little bit. And then to help visually separate everything, I'm going to take black and go down to the deepest part of each one of these ribs and black that back out. Now, if I need to, I can come back in and I can say, okay, maybe that was a little too much, so let's do our neutral gray back in. And just be real careful with it. Sometimes you have to go back and forth. Sometimes you just have to. There, that looks a little bit better. Maybe we need that a little bit wider. Wider. There. It's a little bit better. Not quite as big. That's okay. Cool. All right, I think we're done for the night. I think we are done for the night. Thank you all so much for being here tonight. I very much appreciate it. We're gonna end our YouTube and our TikTok streams now. So thank you all once again for being here. Have a wonderful rest of your weekend. Do the thing that